So China pushing back on President Trump's most recent trade regulations, with the communist nation imposing tariffs on 128 U.S. products, including pork and wine and certain fruits. Joining me now is Ohio Congressman Jim Renacci. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. What do you think of where we are in this battle?
The trade battle? Well, look, I think what the president is doing is trying to make sure that we have fair trade, not only free trade, but fair trade. We expect China to retaliate. We're going to have to watch this. At the same time, I know the president's looking at many of our allies and making sure that all of our trade agreements are not only free but fair trade. So we'll have to see how it continues to work out. But in the end, I know this president knows about this. At the same time, we have to protect the United States to make sure that we do have that free and fair trade, especially with China. China is the abuser, and we got to make sure we're looking at ways to make sure that's more fair in our trade with them.
Do you think that there was another way to approach this? I mean, people argue that this was too blunt. At the same time, you know, the imbalance in power, it seemed like, in the trade situation had gotten so far out of line. It was one of those situations where, you know, people say, you're not going to change it. You know, and here he really shook it up, but that makes people nervous. What do you think? Was it too much? Is it too disruptive?
Well, the one thing I know about Washington after being there 7 years is we wait, we don't do things fast enough. And in business, you're always moving, you're always changing, you're always making decisions to make things better. And I think in the end, what you're seeing with this president is someone who's going to make big, bold decisions, but he's also going to listen and look and watch and see what happens, and we'll make adjustments as we move forward. I'm counting on that as a businessman. I know I was a businessman for almost 3 decades as well, and I see the president doing that.
Yeah. You also wrote in an op-ed about infrastructure. I want to get it right. Trump's infrastructure plan is badly needed and deserves congressional approval. Do you feel like that has been really shoved to the back burner?
Well, I do, and again, it was just a couple of years ago that I was working on an infrastructure plan, because I believe we can't keep pushing this burden onto our children and grandchildren. We have bridges that were built just for 40 years, and they're 80 years old. We have the Brent Spence Bridge in Cincinnati that was built for 80,000 cars a day. It has 160,000. Everything is continuing to change. We need to make sure infrastructure is part of what we move forward with. Again, it also spurs the economy, which I think is important as well. It's dollars that are spent that we can get the economy moving, which is very important as well.
Do you think that we'll see some movement on DACA or you know, the border wall first? I mean, when we're talking about the priority of things, it seems like there's kind of always something on fire around us. China's getting the attention right now in trade because, of course, we've just, you know, sort of set off alarm bells with these tariffs. You have the caravan moving up, which is focusing, you know, a lot of attention on the border. What do you think happens next? What are the priorities as you see them?
Well, one of the problems in Washington that I've learned over the last 7 years is we wait until an emergency before we do something.
Yeah.
DACA is a problem. We're waiting on DACA. We're going to wait for the courts. I believe we need to move on that. I believe we have to quit waiting, because when you wait, all these things start to come together. It's one of the greatest frustrations I've had, again, as a business guy for almost 30 years coming to Washington. We just wait, and then we fix a problem when it becomes an emergency, and we never look out more than 2 years or 4 years election cycles. We should be looking out long-term, fixing all these things. So, yeah, we're going to continue to have things, and they're all priorities, but that's because we wait too long.
You're not the only businessman that went to Washington frustrated with how the process went and thinking that it made absolutely no sense. Has anything changed meaningfully, do you think, since the president took office in terms of the way that business is done?
Well, I think so. You see the president doing certain things that people get a little concerned about, but he's doing it as a businessman would. You throw out a big net. The one good thing is he throws out a big net to see what people think, and then he brings it back, just like trade. When he said originally we're going to have the tariffs, and he excluded he excluded Canada and Mexico. And then he's also talking about companies, especially here in Ohio, that need thin aluminum and thin steel, that we got to give them exemptions. So he's seeing the issues. But I think this is what we need to do. We do need to shake things up in Washington. We can't continue to have the same old, and pass on this debt to our children and grandchildren, which continues to be a problem.
Congressman Jim Renacci, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.